Welcome to the Cali Sober Mom podcast. Monica and Britney are changing the conversation about motherhood, cannabis, and mental health, considering themselves unhinged Martha Stewart adjacent. Monica is a previous corporate America warrior turned mom and voice in the cannabis and consumer advocacy world. Britney is an artist, business owner, mother, and mental health advocate. Now, here are your hosts, the Cali Sober Moms.
Welcome back. You are with the Cali Sober Moms, second edition. This is Monica Olano, and I am joined by my wonderful friend.
I am Britney Brown. Welcome to our bedlam. It is going to be mildly unhinged, but we are here to talk to you today about what the heck Cali Sober even is.
Before we say what Cali Sober is, I want to tell you about my morning, which might define
What happened, Monica?
why I am Cali Sober, okay? Because I think all moms, even women in the world, can relate to this. Imperfect.
You need to be a mom, need not be a mother.
And you might be a father. If you are an unhinged ADHD father, you're probably with us too.
Like birds flock together, as it turns out. So we're just all here.
What happened was, in perfect procrastination style, I had perfectly mapped out how long I could avoid everything, right? And if I did it, this, and this. So of course that meant everything was lined up for Sunday night, correct? Correct. So 30 minutes before bed, my son, who's 2, he's a twin, starts screaming that his ear hurts. My son never complains. He never cries like that, real tears. So that set off.
Oh God, what did he put in his ear?
That was my first thought. That was my first thought too. I'm like, son, did you put anything in your ear? And he's like, no, mama.
Is he 3 or 2, Monica?
2 and 3 months. Yes.
I feel like this is important information for other parents to know.
Yes. If you are new here, I had 3 kids in 18 months. So I have a 3-year-old, almost 4-year-old, and then twins that are 2. It's wild. So we have everything's routine, right? That's the only way you can survive. So when he loses his shit 20 minutes before bedtime, the whole bedtime's thrown off. Everyone's going ape shit crazy. Now he needs to sleep with us. So last night was a disaster. We got through it, got outside to do my stuff, be it late, got enough done. So wake up this morning, at least enough's done. Well, then in the midst of all this, I'd made my son a doctor's appointment, but 3-year-old, of course, has a full epic meltdown. That happens. The 2-year-old twin girl then proceeds to shove in. She ate all her breakfast and wanted more. So I was like, here, have a piece of cheese. She loves cheese. So she proceeds to shove the entire piece of cheese in her mouth at once, start choking on it. When I finally get it cleared, it made her gag in the entire breakfast. Went everywhere. Get all that cleaned up. Then we get them to their 9 a.m. doctor's appointment, which turns out my son, who has tubes because he had so many ear infections, the tube is out and he now has another ear infection. So we're starting that routine. And that, my friends, was all by 9:15 a.m.
My gosh, that is magical. Maybe we should start every episode with a funny kid story, because I actually have a really good one.
We might have to add that. We're not just moms that were like, oh, hey, we're going to go figure out how to handle mental health. And there's reasons we're here. So we're in the thick of it too.
I think it is important that people also know that, yeah, we're bad bitches. We run stuff, but also we're still dealing with normal, everyday kid life stuff. Monica has 3 kiddos that are within 18 months of each other. I have 5 that are, I got 1 through 4 in a year. And then the 5th one came about a year and a half later. We can tell that story later, but we're very much moms. We're very much just normal ass women that are dealing with everyday things. And we also happen to run and advise on 6 and 7 figure businesses. And we do so primarily Cali Sober. I do drink a little bit. Monica does not. But for the most part, cannabis helps us manage the bedlam of our everyday lives normally, or as normally as we're even remotely capable of doing.
Yes.
So my funny kiddo story is I was in Colorado. I needed a little bit of a mom break. I kind of haven't taken one in about a year. So I went and stayed with a friend for a long weekend. And I was at Red Rocks. I don't know if you guys know about Red Rocks. It's this incredible music venue in Denver, or just outside of Denver in Colorado Springs.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Add it to your list if you haven't been.
I was at Red Rocks and I was calling my kids. Obviously, I just FaceTimed my husband and said, like, hey, I'm going to call the kids and show them Red Rocks. They've been to Colorado, but we didn't go to Red Rocks. And I called all my kiddos. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, Mom, you're on a mountain. It's beautiful. Whatever. So Rowan, he's 8. He is the one that I made from scratch. He is the very much an accident baby. My young Rowan has a touch of the tism, much like his mother, and he is so logical and so literal about everything. I called Rowie and we were chatting, and he looks at me and he goes, Mom, where are you? And I was like, buddy, I'm in Colorado. Remember? I went out for a little vacation. He's like, Mom, there are coyotes in Colorado. And I was like, I know, pal. And he's like, you need to be careful. They're very dangerous and they can attack humans. And I was like, I know, pal, but look, do you see this? This is beautiful. This is where they play music. I don't think there's a ton of coyotes. Mom, you need to be reasonable. It is Colorado. There are coyotes. Please be safe.
And I don't know how many edibles deep you were, but that would have freaked me out. My edible experience would have completely changed in that moment. I would have been like, oh my God, like, you're right.
Oh,
you're right.
Buddy, you're right. They are. Man, wow, what a great public safety announcement.
And that, my friends, is why we're here with you. So California Sober is a newish term. So I'm like 50-50 where people see it and they know what I'm talking about, or they ask me what part of California I am from. It's totally okay too, because my famous saying, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know. And it is a new and up and coming term because drinking is starting to slow down. We're seeing those numbers everywhere. And the public persona, I would say, of cannabis is starting to shift slightly, I would say. What do you see? You're in the Midwest. So give me your Midwest view on cannabis and the stigma for it.
Absolutely. So I would say that the Midwest we're kind of an interesting subsect of humans. I live in the middle of a very, very liberal city. Des Moines is, if you've never been to Des Moines, it's darling and we love it here and it's a great time. We're surrounded, we have several college cities that are kind of like dotted around us. So it's really like kind of an epicenter of people that are doing really cool things. We're also in a state that is literally, with the exception of the college towns and Des Moines, which is the capital, very, very conservative. And so we're in a very interesting dichotomy in that we have kind of this bubble of humans in the center of the country that are like, excuse me, we'd like to try something different, please. And everybody else is like, no, the drugs. It's the gateway drug. And so it's literally this like half and half of like, okay, but guys, have you actually ever had an edible? Because you'd probably change your mind in like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't take that. I can just go grab my bag of gummies if you'd like to maybe rethink your stance on this.
Beverage, so you can ease it even slower. That's the best thing is some people have had
God, even better
those edible experiences. And if you don't know, you don't know. And then it hits and there's no stopping it. Like once it hits,
you're like, whoa,
it's in you. It's going because it has to digest and process. But with how they make the technology now for the beverages, they on set in like 15 minutes. So you can pace.
It's also very titrated. You can say like, I can drink half of a beverage, see how I feel. And honestly, you can do that with gummies too, but drinks are just slower. Like it's a slower, it's not as aggressive, one might say. But honestly, I think that it is starting to come around. It's just slow here because we have had a very conservative legislation in this state for quite some time, which has been complicated. And regardless of the reality, perception is what it is. And when you have a very conservative leadership telling a very conservative voter base that, something is or isn't a good idea or safe, realistically, a lot of them listen, and it can be really complicated to get that shifted. So I would say that the Gen X and below subsect, we're here for it. We are ready. We want.
Let's go.
We are into it. I would say that truly, I think that that's honestly going to be the biggest change as we change who our leadership, the demographic of our leadership, as we continue to be the ones that are the target market. I think that that's going to shift.
I think so too. And it's interesting, like, I never thought, even growing up in Des Moines, I never necessarily thought of Des Moines as like the blue dot in a sea of red, but New Orleans is like that too. So New Orleans is so blue. It is unbelievably blue. And I lived in the heart of New Orleans for the majority of my time here. I've been here 17 years, and 10 of those.
It's the vast majority of your adult life.
10 of those years was in New Orleans. And then I moved to, it's called like Old Metairie. I am a mile and a half from the city line, from Orleans to Jefferson Parish. And you just cross that line and you are in a different world, which just amazes me because everybody goes into New Orleans. Everybody enjoys the spice of New Orleans. But then once we get into our homes and in our neighborhoods, our personas become slightly different, which just boggles my mind.
It's literally what, 3 miles? Maybe.
And my daughter does go to one of the like more conservative schools, and I was really nervous about that. And some of the moms, Catholic school system is
which is very common, very common. If you are a listener that is not, especially from Louisiana, their system is set up very differently than nearly everybody else in the country. Parishes are a thing. It's
yes, you do not just go to school in your neighborhood for the most part, like whether you're public or in the private school system. And the most amazing thing to me down here is where you go to school is so important in the sense that the first time you meet anybody here, the first question is, where'd you go to school? And the first time I got asked that, I started naming, all 6 colleges I had been to. And they just laughed at me and they're like, oh, no, sweetie, high school.
We just meant here, babe.
It's amazing to me.
Bless your heart, Monica. Bless your heart.
Here I am, like a stay-at-home mom, but also like starting this business that is based around making women feel empowered to say they use cannabis, feel empowered to use their decisions. Right. And it's around weed at the end of the day. Like, if you want to break it down, like, we are supporting it. There's very medical reasons we're going to dive into. But so we start going to these meet and greets, and the moms are like, well, what do you do? And, but here's the funniest thing. I've just started owning it. I have started owning it. I mean, I own it in the way, like, I tiptoe around it. Like, I'm not like, I can't just say I have a weed business, but I say what it is we're doing.
That's also not
It's not. But it takes me 5 minutes to say what we're doing and explain it. 'Cause I'm still working on my elevator pitch for that.
Maybe I was going to say, maybe we should practice your elevator pitch for the Southern mamas.
But you know what the best thing is? They're all doing it. They're all doing it.
I know.
Ever since I started owning it, my phone blows up. What did I get the other night? What's your favorite sleep gummy? Which one do you recommend for a party where I don't feel anxiety, but I don't want to drink because I don't like the feeling of drinking? Like, nobody cares.
And I think that that's what's important, is that it's the visibility piece paired with experiential, because it is important that we don't base our preconceived notions about cannabis, marijuana, hemp, CBD, whatever version of it that works for you and your body and your, metabolization. But we can't base it on what we learned about weed when we were 18, because that is so not the same thing. On top of
it was lies.
There are way more. Like, it's not real. Like, and realistically, the crap that you smoked at a shitty party when you were 18 is not going to be at all like what you are able to purchase at a very regulated and reputable dispensary nearby, even if it's a CBD based something, or even if it is very high end cannabis.
And don't worry, if that all sounds like foreign language to you with CBD dispensary,
We got you.
we're going to break all that down because nobody knows what's going on. Even the people that are in it. I'll give you a secret. Nobody knows.
No, we're still learning. And realistically, they change stuff regularly because it is a new industry. It's a new regulatory body. It's a new, like, there's just so much going on with it that it is one of those pieces that it's a really significant learning opportunity for, honestly, old school stoners too, because there's a lot of new science coming out about stuff. And so it can be really, really interesting.
And it's new. And all the policies are being made behind closed doors right now. We're talking trillions of dollars that are about to change hands. And they're on a debate talking about, I don't know, I keep hearing about Ohio and cats and dogs. I don't know really what's happening. That's all I got out of the debate from following after was that was the highlight. And so here we are in industries being formed that's going to be worth billions of dollars. And what they're putting on national media is a debate that, from what I understand, everyone thought was a joke. But they're having these meetings behind closed doors. And they're setting the standards. We don't want to be like 40 years from now looking back like the food industry is like, oh, shoot, this is what they did. We're seeing this beforehand. So we have the chance to help define an industry in a way that makes sense for the public versus having our kids having to fight this battle.
And I think it's good. I think it's good that we are having a vested interest in things that are, you know, going to affect how we are teaching our kids about, you know, substance abuse and teaching our kids about what coping mechanisms can look like and figuring out what works for mental health instead of just relying on healthcare or relying on, you know, the government to make the right choices regarding what we have available to us. Because maybe it's just me, but I don't have a strong trust of the government. I mean, it's fine. It's here. We're all here. But
I'm not trying to overtake it, but I'm taking it with a grain of salt.
But, you know, trust but verify. Trust but verify. We're in that moment.
And I have a feeling if you're listening to this, you're in the same boat. Like where I was is that something just doesn't feel right, but I didn't know what it was. And I'm just trying to like feel out the pieces.
What does Cali Sober mean to us as moms, as women, as business owners, as Americans? What does it mean to us?
I found a picture on LinkedIn. I think it was something along the lines of take care of your body so big pharma doesn't have to. I think that was kind of like the gist of it that I saw.
I like that.
And that really helped me define what like Cali and California Sober is, because I always just thought, like, I think it gives the vibes when it says you're pro weed and you're anti. Some people say alcohol. I don't necessarily want to say alcohol and like single that out.
I also don't think you're anti-alcohol. I think you're anti-bad choices and toxicity. Like, I think that's different.
I'm very anti very wealthy and educated individuals using psychology and marketing techniques to make us excited to put poison in our bodies and then make us think that we did something wrong when we no longer want to put poison of any sort in our body. And that's what California Sober means for me, at least, is that I am trying to source out through my own education, through my own resources, through other people I connect and talk with, what's holistic, what is good for my body. And I am not perfect by any means. Let's say I was 0% before. I may be 15 or 20% there now. I still have a processed food addiction that will take me the rest of my life to work on. But the difference is I'm at least cognizant of it. Like, I know I'm doing it and it's something I have to work on, but I'm trying to do harm reduction. There's only so much you can do at once. If you try, anyone that's tried a diet knows this. If you try to go 0 to 100, you're never going to get there. You've got to make small changes that eventually add up.
That all or nothing mentality can be really, really complicated.
Yeah. And the biggest chunk for me, they say eating the frog or tackling the lion. My biggest one was alcohol. So that's why I removed that first, and it made the biggest change for me. And I'm trying to find healthy products to put in my body. But then you hear about all these different hemp sources or marijuana sources that are testing positive for pesticides. And I'm like, well, man, I can't go promote these items if I'm telling people not promote these items. I can't. I'm nervous about promoting this lifestyle without knowing what is in the other things that I use. So that's why on LinkedIn, which you make fun of me for, uh, I spend my day networking and learning from founders and entrepreneurs and scientists in this space so I can learn what they're doing to not make these just a new poison for your body. But that's what Cali Sober is for me. Remove the toxins as much as I can, slowly at a time, and find things that will heal my body that are natural from the earth for my body and try to cut out things that would lead me to big pharma down the road.
Right. And I would say my biggest, what Cali Sober means to me is mine comes much stronger from a mental health standpoint. So I, without preamble, have generalized anxiety disorder, ADHD, autism, and a plethora of other fun, more physical diagnoses. But specifically talking about mental health, I know that keeping my mental health stabilized via whatever means works best for me is not only best case scenario for myself, but for my partner, for my kiddos, for my business, for my friendships, for literally everything. And when that goes down the tube, the amount of things that I affect with my choice making, with my general affect is wild. It is wild. So for me, being Cali Sober, I, to be quite frank, feel less altered by my cannabis use than I have ever felt by drinking. So it doesn't mean, I'm thankful that I have not ever struggled with addiction outside of food addiction. That is something that I've struggled with. But
that is real.
Which is what it is. That's a different thing entirely. Maybe Monica and I will do an entire talk about depression, weight, and mental health on one day, because man, both of us have big stories there too. But on the whole, like, I've never really struggled with alcohol. So I'm still able to have a drink or two if I'm out with, with friends or whatever. And I don't like being drunk anymore. It makes me feel physically ill.
And you know what's crazy is just to hear that for me is like, what do you mean you will go out and have like one or two?
It's so different. It'd be like having a soda at dinner for you.
Yeah, I'd take like one or two sips of it, like, oh, that carbonation was great, and I move on. But meanwhile, my husband loves soda, so he has 3 at dinner.
Correct.
I guess, yeah, that's a good way to phrase that.
It's just a different way of seeing or feeling it within yourself. Like, I could take it or leave it, or I could just as easily take a gummy the second I walk into an event and walk around with a club soda with a lime in it, and nobody knows the damn difference. I just don't. And so I think that that's what's vital to me, is figuring out which pieces for me work best to help me be the best version of human that I can be. And when it reduces my anxiety, when it helps me focus, when it helps me stop obsessing at the end of the day and actually be able to relax and spend time with my family instead of listing all the things over and over again in my head that I have not completed. Because that is what my reality looks like if I'm not taking care of my mental health. And one of the things my therapist likes to say is, Britney, it doesn't matter what you use as your tool, as long as it works for you. And for me, how I actually started cannabis, we were actually going to talk about this too, how we got there. Obviously, I was a college student in the early 2000s and definitely did my fair share of marijuana, cannabis, and hemp use.
That'll be another story of how we got here. It can be its own
story entirely. But for this specific, how I'm to present day use, it honestly came from running out of options. I did not have a lot of choices as far as like how to manage my anxiety. I had tapped out at the top level of most of my meds. And I was still kind of struggling.
Yeah.
And the catalyst was at night, I was still very much struggling to slow down and relax and calm my brain down to be able to do things. And so I didn't necessarily use it for sleep. I used it to give myself a way to stop obsessing. Yes. And what I would do is I would put the kids down at 8 o'clock or 8:30, whatever time when I started doing this. I'd take a gummy, and typically gummies take, it depends obviously on what you take, but 30 to 45 minutes for most people. And I was on a timer. I had 30 to 45 minutes to obsess about the house getting picked up or
smart.
finishing emails or doing whatever. And it was a timer. I had 30 to 45 minutes to finish up whatever I needed to do. And at that point, I was able to breathe. I was able to read a book. I was able to watch a show with my husband. I was able to craft.
That's an amazing technique.
Yeah.
That is an amazing technique. Because,
Yeah.
I'll take some times at night, and I'll do it like an hour before I put the kids down. So that way it's kicked in.
Right. So it's hitting right about when bedtime is.
But if I wait an hour, then I could give myself that too, and then have that. And then that way I could just sit and enjoy.
It was a great way.
Okay. Thank you.
For me, and talking about big pharma things, the only option I had previously to that was Xanax. And that was Xanax knocks me on my ass.
And it's highly addictive.
It's highly addictive. Thankfully, I've not struggled with that. And I've been able to maintain if I'm truly in like a mental struggle, like I can take it. But
the very first thing, and granted, I wasn't up front at first, but the very first thing when I went for postpartum is they prescribed Xanax. That was the very first thing, like, take this. And I just remember hearing about how addictive it could be, and people would pop them with alcohol. And I'm like, I need no more addictions. Like, I haven't even owned this one over here, but that's for another story. So the goal of Cali Sober and the goal of our empowerment is just to let you know that everyone's techniques are going to be different. Everybody, just like we're made differently, we look differently, we think differently. Our techniques to heal are going to be different. We're going to share some that have worked for us. We're going to share some that have worked for others. But we want to help you feel comfortable in your skin, that whatever technique it is that you want, you can tell the other moms at school, this is what I do. And if we can get to that phase, it's going to be an amazing part of womanhood, an amazing part where we just let each other be with what our choices are. If it works for you, cool. If it works for me, cool. Let's get there.
And I think that there's just so many options that have been vilified by either regulatory bodies or media or whatever for so long. Propaganda, exactly.
From a variety of sources.
And I think making strides to find humans that are doing things that are different options that just offer you some choices. I think that that's really solid. And we're, kind of normal, everyday moms. So, we take it with a grain of salt, but it works for us, I suppose.
Take our advice, turn us off. We're going to be here either way.
That's fine. We don't mind. It's all right. You wouldn't be the first nor the last. It's fine.
And on that note, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. I know I definitely did. And we will see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Cali Sober Mom podcast. The best way for us to get the word out is you. So share this episode with someone you know who will enjoy it. And be sure to follow Cali Sober Mom on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're consuming the show right now.